For the very latest in the world of business, the local index is expected to edge lower today in line with global markets, but was poised for its biggest monthly gain in about a year. The rand, meanwhile, continues to trade erratically against the US dollar as it swung from 14 rand 70 on Monday to 15 rand 14 against the US dollar in early trade this morning. For a look at how the markets opened, we joined now by Roy Mutooni, an analyst at ABSA Asset Management. Roy, very good morning to you. Thank you for your time. Give us a sense of how the markets have opened and what's driving the currency moves.
So the markets are basically flat this morning. The top 40 is up 0.01, which is basically nothing. The stocks that are up is MTN on the back of MTN Nigeria and Ghana results. Sibanye-Stillwater is also up, and Anglos. But I think the thing which is weighing on the markets is mainly the performance of Naspers and Prosus, which are both well down for the day. In between that, there isn't much, so I think it's just a typical month-end closing trading session.
Telecom SA has published its trading statement. Talk us through some of those numbers.
So it's actually quite an interesting one. They're guiding to earnings for the first half of this year being up about between 20 and 30%, which is strong. The thing about it is they didn't give much in terms of operational numbers, but what's interesting is they said this is on the back of lower finance costs and then a bit of FX movements, foreign exchange movements and all that. I think what's really good and positive about this result is that it must mean they delevered a bit, which means they paid down a bit of debt. Remember, the story about Telecom has been that they don't generate free cash flow, but we saw that changing last year and into this year, so it's been maintained. I think when you look at, if you try and split it out into operational and finance costs, it must mean that the operational numbers are trending. The momentum remains positive, remains strong. So we'll only get the detail when the results are announced maybe through November, but I think it's a good result. It points to sustained improvement in the stock.
Multinational engineering and construction company Marion Roberts has received a 1.6 billion rand in a new project awards in Australia. What does this then mean for the group's order book?
So this is a group that's evolved dramatically. I mean, they're not so much an SA construction group as they are a global engineering group with a lot of business out of Australia. So what this new deal does, it pretty much ties in the expected revenue for the next 3 years, which is a big positive. It allows them to expand margins. They can hire people. They've got the security of knowing that there's work to be done. And it's quite big. I think if you annualize the order book, they basically get last year's revenue as a minimum in each of the next 3 years. So that's great. I think you'll see margins widening. I think you'll see the balance sheet cleaning itself out, and it positions them to return to growth. Remember, engineering and construction hasn't been the favorites of the market for the last 5-10 years even. So no, very good update here, and I think quite positive outcome to all of their restructuring and repositioning.
And very lastly, MTN Nigeria results have been released for the 9-month period, which ended 30 September of 2021. What are those numbers looking like?
So that was also a positive update. I think on the upside, you saw revenues nicely, the revenues continuing to grow. So each of the quarters of this year, we've seen double-digit growth in revenue, and this one has been maintained for the third quarter. The only thing is it's maybe slightly softer in growth terms in the second. But that's still a good thing. I mean, we're averaging somewhere in the mid-20% growth, so that's really good. Margins are wider, free cash flow is stronger. Pretty much nothing wrong with the result. I guess the two things that people might pull it back on is the fact that SIM registrations are still quite low, but that's something that's been ongoing. Data is now quite strong, so that's a big positive, and we still haven't heard about their mobile money license, which is another story that has been ongoing since 2018. But by the by, I think a very strong result, and it bodes well for when we see what's going to happen with the group results, I think, next week or the week after. It builds quite nicely on what we saw with MTN Ghana, and also what MTN Uganda should be announcing relatively soon.
Absolutely interesting developments indeed. Roy Mutooni, an analyst at ABSA